All right, so the next thing that we want to do is validate that the username is lowercase. Let's just say that we can't have any uppercase characters. So as the user's typing, we want to say, hey, yo, you're typing uppercase characters. We can't accept that input. And let's just get a look at what this actually looks like. If we type in uppercase, then we're going to get username must be lowercase. So how would we build this in our own example here? Well, what we need to do is we need to have some sort of change handler on the input so that as the user's making changes and typing in here, we actually can determine whether the input is valid and show an error message if it's not. So we're going to come over here and I'm going to make a function called handle change. And this is going to take an event. And this event, we don't need to prevent the default because the default behavior is fine in the change event case, because there's not really a default behavior in this case. But we're going to apply this handle change to the input. So we want to listen to changes on the input. So we'll say on change is handle change. And now our event.target value is going to be the input, not the form, because the element that's experiencing, or that is the target of the event, is the input. And so we can get the value out of the event target. And with that value, I can determine whether or not it is all lowercase by saying value.to lowercase. And if that value is equal to itself when it's been too lowercased, then we know if it is lowercase. And if that's the case, then we don't have an error, we're totally good. But if not, then we actually need to show the user some error. What we need to do here now is maintain some error state. And we're going to do that using another React hook called react.useState. We'll pass in null for that. And that is going to be the initial value for our state. So as this component gets started, React is going to give us a state value that starts out as null. So we're going to say error and set error are what we get back from useState. So useState gives us an array where the first value of that array is the actual state value over time, and the second value is a mechanism for updating that state. And so now that we have this, I can say set error, and if it is lowercase, then we're fine. We'll just set it to null. Otherwise, we'll specify username must be lowercase. And then based on that, we can display an error. So right above the submit button, I'll say div with the style color red, just for funsies, and we'll put the error right in there. So if there is an error, then that will get rendered. If there's not, then it'll still get rendered, but the contents of this div will be empty, so it won't show up for the user, which is fine for our example here. And then for the button, I want to disable that button if they've typed something invalid. So I'm going to say disabled is true or false, right? So we're going to disable it if there is an error, and we'll set it to false if there's no error. So we'll pass in the error here, and just to make it more explicit, I'm going to say Boolean error. So now we're absolutely passing true or false to this value. So if we save that now, we can type in uppercase, and we're totally not good. We can't click on submit. And if we type a lowercase, then we're totally good and we can click on submit. So in review, to make all of this magic happen, we had to add a handle change here to our input so we could handle change events. And then we got the value for that target, which is the input. And we determined whether or not it's lowercase. And then we set the error state based on whether it's lowercase. So if it is lowercase, then we just set it to null, so there's no error. And if it's not lowercase, then we'll set it to this string. And we got that set error by using the useState hook from React, which will just maintain some state for us over time. It gives us the current state, and it gives us a mechanism for updating that state. And then based on that state, we're going to set the disabled value of the submit button, and we're going to render the error if there is an error there. We'll get a deeper dive of these hooks later, so if this is a little bit confusing to you, don't worry, it'll click eventually. I promise.